My student Owen and I flew an active IFR flight plan from Laconia, Hampshire to Portland, Maine recently, with VFR conditions on the way out. On the return flight to Laconia, we also flew an active IFR flight plan and actually got into some clouds briefly. With all of my IFR flight students, I like to expose them to flying in actual IFR conditions, as foggles really can't capture the feelings of flying in real IFR conditions. The main purpose of the lesson was for Owen to work on his communication skills with ATC, including talking with Boston and Portland Approach and the Portland Tower. In addition, I wanted him to get some experience flying a standard instrument departure, or SID. Portland has a simple SID called the Portland 6. The weather out to Portland was gorgeous, with some stunning views of the Maine coastline. We requested to fly vectors for the ILS-29 approach into Portland, which we did receive. Portland Approach gave us vectors that took us out off the coast of Maine and over the Atlantic Ocean. They fortunately assigned us an altitude of 5,000 feet that gave us gliding distance back to the coastline in the event we lost the engine. Not until we turned inbound to intercept the ILS-29 course did they have us drop down to 4,000 feet. Coming in over the harbor on the approach, the views of the offshore islands and the Portland downtown were stunning, with the early morning sun lighting up the buildings and boats in the harbor. One of the most important things to remember when instrument flying is staying ahead of the plane. This includes getting the airport's weather and NOTAMs well before you're actually cleared for the approach, loading the approach plate into the avionics, briefing the approach plate, completing the before landing checklist just prior to turning on course to intercept the inbound course, and finally configuring the aircraft for landing just prior to the final approach fix. Owen did an excellent job doing all these items while also handling the radio calls. And he did an excellent job with landing, especially with a much wider and longer runway that he is used to doing at Laconia. Once we landed, he taxied off the runway and switched to Portland ground, where he was given taxi instructions and his IFR clearance out of Portland and back to Laconia. As we waited for our release off of runway 29 out of Portland, we watched a Republic Airline aircraft come in on landing. After that aircraft exited the runway, we were released and cleared to depart. Since the time interval between our release and the landing aircraft were quite short, well under 3 minutes, Owen delayed his rotation until we were beyond where the larger Republic Airways aircraft landed. As we had filed in the remarks, we were assigned to depart on the Portland 6 SID. All we really had to do was fly runway heading not to exceed the SID's top altitude of 3,000 feet until we were transferred from the Portland Tower to Portland Approach. Portland Approach then had us climb to 6,000 feet. While at 6,000 feet, Owen got his chance to experience flying in actual IFR conditions, though very briefly. But still, it was his first exposure to actual IFR flight. The rest of the flight went uneventful. Portland Approach assigned us to fly to the Dojin waypoint, which was an initial approach fix for the RNAV 26 back into Laconia. They then transferred us to Boston Approach, who cleared us to fly the RNAV 26. When we landed back in Laconia, we canceled the IFR flight plan on the ground on the RCO frequency. In the end, the flight accomplished all of the goals we wanted to achieve for the lesson. Flying active IFR flight plans, communicating with ATC, flying both an ILS and an RNAV approach, flying a SID out of a towered airport, and for the cherry on top, getting the brief chance to fly in actual IFR conditions.